For most men, if all they need is another physical release, it's easier to have a one night stand. It's easier to have a mistress. It's easier to have a concubine or something than it is to take on another wife and actually have her as a wife like you. I do feel very strongly that, especially sisters in the community, we need to stop normalizing the extreme emotional response that some sisters have when their husband marries again. We need to stop normalizing that, because the reality is it's not normal to become suicidal because your husband has taken another wife in halala. That is an extreme response. And when we start to speak about that extreme response as a normal response, any woman would feel like that. It gives permission to other sisters to say, okay, oh, right. It sets the narrative, right? Husband marries again. I fall into depression. I feel suicidal. My life is over, etc. Because, well, that's what happens, isn't it? Isn't that the norm? And firstly, I don't think that that is a normal response, psychologically or spiritually, right? And I don't think that we should be normalizing that. I think that we should be teaching our young girls. Firstly, we need to teach ourselves, but we should be teaching our young girls, this is a possibility, and this is what it means. This is what it doesn't mean about you necessarily. This is what it does not mean about your relationship necessarily, but this is what it could mean. And this is the way to ride through it with grace. If we don't have those conversations with our daughters, we're raising them with the idea that I will be the only one. And that true love is when I'm the only one. And then if her husband now turns around and says, I'd like to marry another, we've perpetuated the cycle. We've just perpetuated the cycle.
Love me no more, all this other stuff. That is so amazing, because that was going to be another thing that I was going to ask about, having that conversation with your children that about polygyny, because it's a form of marriage. If we're going to talk about marriage, if we're going to talk about, ethical forms, being married, monogamy is not the only form. So being able to show that there's other options, and because if your husband was to take this as an option, that it does not mean that you are this. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care. Those type of things, because I think that's one of the things, and that was one of the things I was going to, as an upcoming video anyway. If polygyny was normalized as much as monogamy, would it be much of a problem? Would it be a problem? Would people find a total issue with it as much as they do now, because it's so taboo?
Well, it's not the only moral option. And we keep saying that monogamy is the only moral option, and it's not. And it's so not. That's a huge issue in the Muslim community. We have to put moral value on polygyny as well.
Indeed. So my question, because I thought about something back when you were speaking earlier, and you stated that kind of on the line of how we will have these ideas about polygyny, and he was like, I was there too. So when you say that, do you mean that your viewpoint changed in polygyny, where it was not that you were anti-polygyny, but kind of where it was and then now it's like, you know what, no, I see the benefits, I see these different things, and it's not just with it. Were you on that side of the fence where it was like, I don't really see it as what people are saying, and maybe it's the benefit for the man, or something on the lines of that, or less, more or less, I guess I should say?
I think definitely it was something that I didn't want for myself, and because it is the man's imperative. If you're in a situation where you're not feeling that great about men anyway, or if you're in an environment where sisters are not feeling great about men in general, then for sure they're not going to be fans of polygyny, even though obviously there is a woman involved on the other side, right? So if the man is benefiting, then that woman, the other one, she's also benefiting, right? But we don't count her. We don't count her in the sisterhood. Who we count
Right.
Yeah.
are the ones who have our same position. So if you're in a
Yes.
community where you or in a clique or in a group of sisters where in general they're not fans of the brothers, then they're not going to be fans of polygyny either, right? Because it is the male imperative. It is his decision to do that, right? It's something that he wants, and if he wants it enough, he makes it happen. So for me, it was a case of, I didn't want that for me. I had seen a couple of situations that were really messy, and I didn't want that for my life. But I also knew, and around that time was when a lot of these long-term marriages I'm talking about that I know now, it was around time when the husband took the second, right? And of course, that can be quite a tumultuous time. Now we're talking 20 years later or something, and those marriages are still intact. You see that friction at the beginning, that pain at the beginning, it fades over time. And if the parties are intentional and they work at it, they can actually form a family that stands the test of time. So the people that I knew back in the day, this is when, before I kind of, had a different view on it, but they were just starting off those marriages then, and it was quite difficult, right? And now, like I said, 20 years later, how many kids later, you see that, okay, it was viable and it benefited more than just the man, right? And this is the thing that a lot of us don't want to accept, is that you keep saying he's doing it for himself. Let me tell you something, yeah? For most men, and again, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, for most men, if all they need is another physical release, it's easier to have a one night stand. It's easier to have a mistress. It's easier to have a concubine or something than it is to take on another wife and actually have her as a wife like you. Because regardless of, in your head, you're thinking he's doing it for selfish reasons and he's hurting you and he's doing it at your expense, which I think is the thinking, that he's doing this good thing potentially, but it's at my expense. And I don't want him to do it at my expense because I didn't sign up for this, all of that. If he gets it right, this other woman is basically the reward, and the barakah is multiplied because this other woman now gets the love, care, and attention of a spouse. And I know sis doesn't want to hear this because she's like, that's my spouse. What do you mean? But let's step back for a second. Now we have a situation where not just you are being taken care of, but another sister in Islam is also being taken care of. If she had children and they are having a stepfather set up, they now have a masculine role model in their lives, right? Yes, he's not full time, but he's around, right? And he's involved and he is invested and will probably invest more over time. So what we're talking about when we say sort of a healthy individuals, right, in any situation, in any institution, can make it work. So we have to ask ourselves whether we're in a monogamous situation or a polygynous situation. Firstly, are we healthy adults? Are we? Are we healthy adults who are behaving as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to behave? Because when you see children coming, people say things like, oh, polygamous marriages scar children, right? They destroy children's lives. What about the monogamous marriages that scar children and destroy children's lives?
That's right.
Like, it's a moot point, actually, right? Because most people did not come from polygamous marriages, and yet most people have trauma from childhood.
Exactly.
So what's up?
So it's not a polygyny thing, it's a people thing, like you said
Right.
before.
Exactly. It's not a polygyny thing, it's a people thing. And that's where the focus should be. It's easy to blame the institution. It's easy to blame polygyny and to demonize it. It's easy, right? And it's especially easy because the majority in the society have a privilege that they want to maintain, right? So it's easy. And the thing is, it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me because I do think that that position, that polygyny is not viable, right? And that polygyny is fraught with issues and fraught with problems and is bound to fail, is a very female imperative perspective, right? It is a very gynocentric perspective because I don't think that most men, if they're being honest and they were asked, would you like to have more than one wife? I don't think most of them will be like, hell no. Oh, no, 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 no. Especially if they have a decent if they have a decent relationship, most men will happily take on more. There are, of course, mitigating factors. If they can't afford it, if they don't like women necessarily, and it's like, oh, it's too much headache, like, no way, I wouldn't want to do that. If they don't want more responsibility, it's so many different things, right? But most men, I think, if you were to ask them, they would not have the same level of pushback on polygyny that we've created in the community. And that comes from us women. And we need to take ownership of that. Even if it's coming from a member or it's coming from a scholar, I don't believe that that scholar is speaking on behalf of the whole society. He's speaking on behalf of the majority of women, right, who are in a situation where they need to basically maintain their position, right? Maintain the status quo, because that is the status quo that serves them. And I've said this before, and I've got backlash for this before. But sis, the status quo that's serving you right now might actually not be serving your husband. And that's something that
Right.
you need to be open to accepting if that's the truth, right? I'm not saying that every man who's married to one woman is dying to marry another. I'm not saying that, right? And I'm not saying that every man who's married to one woman wishes that he could and it's like a big thing for him and whatever. But what I am saying is that we assume that because a man is married to us and we are fabulous, that he should be satisfied. No, he should be satisfied. Like, he should not have any complaints, right? But I really believe that once children come along and we start to become busy with the work of mothering, I do believe that many sisters and society and the community, our identity is tied more to our children and the role we play in the larger family than the kind of wife we are. So I don't know how many of us are actually thinking and rating ourselves on the quality of wifing that we do as much as we do on our mothering. We're very hard on ourselves when it comes to being mothers, right? We have high standards for ourselves when it comes to being moms, and we sacrifice to be good moms. We put in extra work, extra time. We read up, we learn in order to be good moms. Alhamdulillah. And I'm proud of our sisters for that. I don't think we give the same attention to being a wife. And so if the husband comes out and says, you know what, I'd like to do this, we can't believe it because we think, well, look at everything I've done for our family. Look at how I'm showing up for the house, for the children, for the this, for the that, for the this. But where is he in that mix, right? Where is he on the list of priorities? And again, if this doesn't apply to anybody who's watching, alhamdulillah, but it is a societal thing. Being a wife is not considered important, right? It's not something that you should want per se. It's not something you should prepare for, right? Nobody teaches you how to prepare to be a wife. Nobody is out here to, like giving you the skills on being a wife. They're just, as a society, we just don't prioritize that role as we do a mother. So it's natural, I think, for many sisters to say, well, I'm here, aren't I? I'm here. I'm committed to the family. Like, he gets his food, whatever else that is going on, he should be happy with that.
Yeah, that's it. They build different.
No, oh gosh, I love that you touched on that so much. And I know we can go on and on with this. And I know it's going to be a continuation
Right.
too, because you bring out so many points, and you say you get backlash. I'll say certain stuff. I got so much backlash on certain things that I said, and mostly people will say, "Well, because you don't know any better, because you're you're a second wife, so you don't know." But the thing is that, or there's like, you think that everything's just supposed to be, put together and everything is so happy. It's not that I think that it is. I think that it can be if, like you said, if the people are willing to work, if the people are healthy. So it doesn't matter what timeline you came in on, because the thing is that we stated before about the first wise world and things like that. I did a video and got a lot of backlash for that.
They was
about
ready
that.
to hang you behind that. I was like,
So
y'all.
and I'm going to actually do a response to that too. But it's because of the simple fact that's like, let's look at it because just the numbers. You are either an only wife or a first wife anyway. The majority of the people are. So we're just being real about it. It's nothing, negative or spiteful about it. It's what it is. And however the majority feels, people are going to get that, what I heard with Muhammad Ijaz said, the emotional contagiousness of it all.
Emotional contagion,
Where it's like, oh, well, you have pain, so I feel your pain, and I feel your pain, and I feel your pain. And if the
and people will have trauma, right? Sisters will experience trauma on behalf of other sisters, right? And the thing is, and again, this stuff is tough and tricky. As women, we are emotional beings, right? Most of us have not been taught emotional regulation. Most of us do not know how much power we actually have over our emotions. We think that our emotional response is a direct result of what's happened. But of course, that's not the case. Our emotional response is a direct result of our thinking about what's happened, what we're choosing to think of, what we're choosing to focus on, what the story we're telling ourselves is all about. That is what creates the emotion. So that's why I think even in today and amongst us as women in general, it's very difficult to a sister who's having an emotional episode, right, and who is bleeding. Yeah, she's bleeding out, all right, on the people around her, on the sisters around her. It's actually very difficult to do anything except soak up the blood, because nobody around is equipped to kind of coach her through this. She doesn't know how to coach herself through this. And so what actually ends up happening is this traumatic event, which didn't need to be traumatic. It wasn't the event that was the trauma. It was your response to the event, what you thought about the event, how you allowed yourself to feel, and then kind of what you continued to kind of to dig into and spiral downwards. That's where the trauma is, right? So not every pain that we face as women is traumatic or needs to be trauma, guys. We have to stop normalizing that normal life events, meaning loss, betrayal, disappointment, frustration. This is a normal part of life on this dunya, right? It is an unrealistic expectation to think that no one in your life will ever let you down, that you will always occupy the position that you occupied before, that you will never have to lose anything, will never have to sacrifice anything, will never have to put yourself behind the greater good. This is unrealistic. And the more we hold on to this ideal that, everything's going to be wonderful, the less resilient we are and the less we can cope with normal life events.
So true. We teach our kids to do that, but then it seems like it changes when it happens to us.
Yeah.
And to your point, sis, because I know we have to wrap up now, but you were talking about the children, right? The children are only traumatized because of you, sis.
Right.
I'm sorry. It's not the fact that their father married again that is traumatizing the kids. It's how you respond. It's what you say about it. It's what you don't say about it. Their response is related to you and how you are reacting to the scenario. So even when people say, this is what polygyny does, it destroys children's lives, it traumatizes them, it makes them hate men, it makes them hate women, all of this stuff. No, again, it's not the institution. It is the way the people in the institution are running things, right? So of course, if my father marries again and I never see him ever again. Like he disappears. He abandons the family, right? And we hear that he has another wife somewhere. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna feel some kind of way for sure, right? If my father married again and my mother went off the deep end and had to be committed, yes, so she literally lost her mind and it destroyed our whole family. That's going to be my story. That's what polygamy does. Yeah, my father married again and this is what happened. But of course, as a child, you don't realize that your father made irresponsible choices. It wasn't the fact that he married again, because he could have had a mistress and done that, right? He could have chosen drugs and done that. He made irresponsible choices. Your mother wasn't able to regulate her emotions, right? And didn't have the support she needed in that particular situation. It was not the polygyny that was the issue. It was the people and the way they showed up in the situation. And I think that that is a really important point for us to keep bringing up with Muslim audiences and Muslim communities. Don't problemize the institution. Look at the problems with the people and let's solve that, because we've got the power to do that. We have the ability to teach the skills of emotional regulation. We have the ability to show people how they can choose their thoughts and impact their emotions and how they show up. This is doable. As for, trying to demonize a whole institution that is halal and that has been a part of Muslim societies ever since the beginning, you're not going to win. And men's natural polygamous nature, you want to stamp that out, you're not going to win, right? You are not going to win pushing against biology and pushing against what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said is halal and has barakah. You're not going to win. So instead of fighting that battle, let's fight the battle within. The battle with the nafs, the battle with the ego, the battle with the fairy tales, the battle with those, those fantasies that you are still holding on to. And let's get real about this life, which is that it's finite, which is that nothing is guaranteed, which is that it's a test and we will return to Allah. And all we need to care about is, what am I going to say on that last day? That's all.
That is so true.
On that note, sister. Alhamdulillah.
So good, because you went there and we needed you to go there, because the sisters need to hear these things, and the more we talk about it, the easier it will be to talk about it, inshallah.
Inshallah. We're so happy to hear your insight, your input. Yes. So glad that you took time out with us for this. So alhamdulillah. Oh my gosh. And it's so much more that we can talk about. And of course, we will, inshallah, God will bring Sister Naima back and have more conversations about this, because as we stated before in a number of our recordings and episodes that we've done before, we stated that this is an ongoing conversation. It's a number of things that we have to dig through and peel back the layers of these different things. So, alhamdulillah, like I said, you shed some light on so many important things, with us being the owners of how we perceive things, how we pursue things, and how we make our own lives and marriages the best that we can make it. We have that power. So alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair.
Barakallah fiki. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you guys.
Ameen. Ameen. All right, I hope you guys got some great information from this video, this talk, this wonderful informational session. Yeah. And if you haven't already, make sure you share, because sharing is caring. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah. And we're going to leave you guys with what?
Some GLC. So make sure you are growing intentionally,
loving fearlessly,
and connecting on a higher level every single day. And make sure, if you haven't already, join our private community, Troll Free Zone. You'll get the information, the links in the description.
And you guys are going to want to pick up your polygamy roadmap for women. It's an ebook, guys. So make sure you guys pick that up. And where is that at?
You'll find all that information right in the description. So, inshallah, God willing, we will see you guys in the next video. Assalamu alaikum. Peace.
We are also the authors of the new ebook, The Polygamy Roadmap. 2 different roadmaps, one specifically for men and the other
for women.
Naturally. So no matter where somebody is in their journey, whether they're just considering it and what's required, especially men I'm talking to, I share the 5 requisites on really what it takes to build a healthy, successful polygynous family unit. So with that being said, make sure if you're a man and if you're serious, not just curious, you take action and get it today.
And in the women's polygamy roadmap, we talk about the different feelings that women might go through with emotions of fear, challenge, betrayal, jealousy.
Yes, and we give you some good insight as well as tips, anecdotes, as well as some of our stories of struggle in the polygamy roadmap too for women. And you will find out really how to have a type of confidence in yourself after reading this. I'm truly, truly in the mindset that you would anyway.
Indeed. So do what you got to do. And that means go to polygamyroadmap.com, grab your copy. We look forward to you benefiting from it and joining us in our private community. With that being said, Assalamu alaikum.
Peace.